Hey everybody. If you're watching this, please be sure to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Thanks. Hey everybody. So so I just got done watching the Netflix original The Strays, okay? So I'm just gonna give y'all my thoughts on this. If you are one of those people who don't like spoilers, this might be the time for you to just, not watch. All right. So we get this basically this black woman in Britain has this accent or whatever. All right, so we start up with this scene with this British black woman. Her name is Cheryl, talking to her sister about how badly people treat her. They have a lot of bills, so on and so forth. Um, she was talking about how they were down at the housing office and how people were looking at her like trash. Because she's black in Britain, and just the same things that happen to black people in this country. I believe it. That they do that kind of shit to black people to make us feel like something is wrong with us. So she was saying basically that she wanted more out of life. She should be in a different space after working so hard. And so she's kind of talking about her husband and what they don't have. And I was like, sis, we understand how being black can be a hindrance to the things you deserve. Not because it's being black in and of itself, but the way white supremacy works. So she was talking about because of other people's racism and prejudice. So I got the feeling that something was going wrong with her husband, but like because they were broke. I didn't realize that there may have been some domestic violence in the situation. But considering Cheryl as her character develops, there's a good chance there may have been some truth, may not have been. Okay. Anyway, so she basically is telling her sister, all this other stuff. And then several years later, the woman that we're introduced to as Cheryl at the beginning of the movie is now Nev. I was like, what kind of fucking name is Nev? But okay. She is walking around in this ghetto, tired wig and foundation that looks odd. I mean, like she's just caking it on. I mean, it's a very pretty woman that plays the part. And we are supposed to believe, I thought as I watched it, we were supposed to believe she was white at first, right? Like the way we were supposed to believe like Holly Berry was white when she played in Queen by Alex Haley or Queenie by Alex Haley. So I was like, are we really supposed to believe this? She's just light skinned. But anyway, she's married to a well off white man and has very light children, but yet are black children, right? So her daughter, like she's the kind of person we got a taste of her. She's um in administration at this private school. She's doing well for herself. She goes to check on her daughter and realizes her hair is in like this sort of bushy ponytail. And she had come into the store where her daughter was working and she like zeroes in on her hair. It says we'll have to get some special shampoo to help with it. Anyway, she sends her kids to the private school she works at. Now, these are only two kids we know about so far. Okay? She's the head deputy of the school. She said she was the head mistress, but her son corrected her and said head deputy. She catches her son smoking weed in the woods with this like janitor, right? And so it's just a lot of weird stuff. But for some reason, I kept watching. So she threatens to suspend him. So she acts like his mother and as the administrator at the same time, and like it's like, remember, I'm your mom, and you're still a student at school. I can do all this to you. And I was just like, damn, chick. That's the problem sending your kids to the same school you work at. I don't believe in that. I think that's conflict of interest. Anyway, so she keeps seeing these random ass black people, significantly darker black people. Okay, which is why I think this was written. Oh gosh, I really feel like this was written by an American with like black British actors. Okay, because a lot of the racial dynamics that they bring up are very unique to America as opposed to Great Britain, where black people and people of African descent are a significant minority. Whereas, I mean, they're like an extreme minority, whereas we're like a more significant minority in terms of numbers. It was just giving that. It was giving that. But okay, I went along with it for a second in terms of watching it. And these are significantly dark black people. She continues to perform these acts of whiteness. So it becomes clear in like these little conversations, these bits and pieces, and they don't ever go back and pick up these conversations. That's why it's kind of weird. You got to kind of hang on to it. So her daughter comes home with cornrows, and she has her white friends over, and she's hee hee and ha ha, and one of the friends say, "Oh, your hairstyle's very ethnic," which her mother begins to act happy with them and is just irate, essentially, with her daughter. Then the same night, her son comes home late from a basketball game. Now, stay with me. His name is Sebas, like short for Sebastian. And she claims to her husband, she was like, he's not home yet. I'm telling you, there are people out to get us. And her husband's like, what's wrong with you? Like, she keeps seeing all these flashes that he's like, clearly darker complexioned black people. Okay, that's what I'm making a point of. Okay, so I know this seems very much like a white creation. So you can tell her kids are half white, but they're very clear in the movie when she brings up stuff about black people, which is rare. When she doesn't, they go, "Well, what's wrong with that? We're black." Like they're still operating off the one drop rule. I mean, and they do look, biracial, but black. All right, so he comes home late and his father asks, like, "Where have you been?" And he goes, "Out." His father says, "Out? Where the hell have you been?" She just sits there like this weird kind of trance she's in. And all of a sudden, this black woman takes off her shoe and runs over there and beats the shit out of his tall teenage ass. I was thinking to myself, he talking back to his parents because that's just what they do. She beats his ass with that shoe to the point where her husband tried to get her off of him, but that was not working. And then sends him upstairs and he goes running shit for his life. Her husband couldn't make her stop. I said the blackness came out, baby. But anyway, she keeps taking these red pills. This is another part of the movie that we never get an explanation on. She keeps taking these red pills and we don't know what they're for, but she's always scratching underneath her wig. Like, I guess that's her real natural hair that's itching her. Anyway, so she tries to get this black man fired, right? This young black custodian, the same one that was in the woods with her son. And she says she saw him give her son basically a joint. And I guess she didn't really see it completely, but she saw enough. So the white man says, "Well, unless you saw it, it can seem like discrimination because there's no other black people working there." So with his intervention and suggestion, she claims a formal warning will suffice for now. So if I had a dime for the number of black people I have just seen in independent private schools alone, in positions of power, that would have gladly seen other black people fired, and had it not been for a white person saying something to change their mind, I wouldn't have to work for the next 3 years. That's all I'm gonna say. Anyway, so there's this scene where she walks into the same bathroom during a fire drill. Like, she's getting all the kids out, but she walks into the bathroom where clearly the custodian is working. The custodian who she tried to get fired, I guess she calls herself addressing him. And he was fixing the toilet, but he comes out of the stall almost like a zombie and starts yelling at her, "You tried to get me fired." And she lies and says, "No." He says, "You were raising us. You were raising me and Theo. And you left," and screams, he just starts screaming. And she's like, "No." And she's running out of the school building. All this happened in the midst of a fire drill. And I'm sitting here like, where the fuck is this going, right? Like, I know she escaped from somewhere, but like, what the fuck is happening? All right. Then next, we get her hosting this fundraiser for poor, unfortunate kids who don't have health care and become victims of blindness and deafness, and everybody's white except for her and her two kids. All right. Then all of a sudden, these two black kids show up. I mean, I shouldn't say black kids. One is clearly a kid, the girl. And then the other one seems like an older teenage, like that 1920 range. But once again, the way they depict them in the movie, they're significantly darker than her. Like, they would stand out in a way her kids may not automatically stand out. Um, so she starts, as she's giving this speech about blindness and deafness, she has a fit. She runs from the stage to the back and starts yelling at these two young black people and says, "Who invited you?" She takes the glass out of the boy's hand and throws it down on the ground and starts screaming at them to get out. Her son says, "Mom, stop." And she, like, her son Sebas, she basically yells at him for trying to tell her anything. After she yells, he calls her mother, to her great dismay of her white guest. And then I realized that these two teenagers, Carl and Dion, are actually her birth children that we did not see at the beginning of the movie. And I'm like, wait a minute, plot twist. What the fuck is happening? So just when I was gonna cut this shit off, like, okay, this is some British bullshit, whatever. Next thing we know, we see Carl and Dion going to get a hotel where in the same city where Nev is staying, at Nev, formerly Cheryl, okay? Where Nev is staying in the same city and they only plan to stay a week, but they're trying to basically find out what happened to their mother, right? This relationship with their mother. So Carl, her son, is the guy, the janitor working at the school, okay? And Dion gets a job working for her husband's insurance company, even though she's like 15 years old, don't have no degree or nothing. I was like, okay, well, maybe this isn't America, but all right, anyway. And it appears they're trying to get back into Nev slash Cheryl's life, okay? So Dion gets close to the new daughter, and Carl develops a relationship with Sebas. So the new daughter, that's what I call it. The new daughter was named Mary, the light, the light child. And then Sebas is the other yellow child. Carl is her darker complexion son, and Dion's her darker complexion daughter. So Dion is letting her try on clothes in their hotel, letting Mary, that's the yellow daughter, she basically tries to befriend her and says, I work for your father, this and the other. But they're about roughly the same age, and she's looking at the different clothes, and she pulls out this bright yellow Versace dress, and she has convinced Mary that her name is Abby, not Dion. And she says, ooh, maybe I'll wear this to prom. And Dion goes, prom? Like on TV? She says, yeah, you've never been? All of a sudden, Dion, who's going by the name Abby, goes into this dark space and starts talking to Mary about how she's always been the favorite. Haven't you? Haven't you? And Mary's kind of thrown off, like, not really. Like, she's just thinking about her and her brother. And she looks like she wants to kill this girl for the fact that she has this relationship with her mother. She was like, she tucks you in at night. She sings to you. She does all this, doesn't she? Doesn't she? And I was like, oh shit. Right? So this is how Dion finds out their mother is throwing a big gala that her and her brother show up to when Nev slash Cheryl takes that glass and throws it out their hand and shows her entire ass in front of all the white people that are supposed to give money. Anyway, then Carl is hanging out with Sebas, right? So he asks him, he goes, so what's up with your mom? Right? Carl, who's still a custodian at the school, but it's the custodian at the school who's kind of young, hanging out with her son. The red flag. And then also knows that the son is getting bullied a lot, right? So anyway, he says, well, what's up with your mom? He said, well, she pretends like she's not black. She never talks about her past. He was like, anything black is off limits in our house. And Carl was like, what? For real? And I was thinking to myself, yep, and that's including you, Carl. Anyway, so then they show up at the gala and they flip back to after she throws the glass out their hand and is showing her entire ass. But they show us the reaction of Dion, her other little girl, who's a teenager now, screaming and yelling at Nev slash Cheryl about how she never cared for her, how she never did what she was supposed to do, and this, that, and the other. And the next thing you know, her white husband is asking her, well, is this stuff true? Where did this come from? So they're at home. It shifts to them being at home, and she has her husband and the two kids she likes, I guess, the ones she loves, her two yellow kids. And she gets like mad. He said, well, it just seems like I need to know if this is true. It seems like your two black children just showed up. She got mad when he called them her black children. Okay, because she don't like that word in her house or in her life. Anyway, she says, don't act like you would have just been up for raising two black children. And he kind of gets stunned and she goes, yes, exactly. The two worlds don't mix. I was like, but bitch, you done lied about two whole ass kids existing. We didn't know we watching the movie didn't know they were your fucking kids. Like, what the fuck? You ain't mentioned this shit? Nothing? Huh? Like, you ain't come with no story. Yeah, their father got them in court or something like that. She was like, well, they grew up with their father. She says Michael was a bad man and she escaped basically implying that he had been abusive or whatever. And she said, I did what fathers do all the time. And I was like, hashtag facts. You're right. This wouldn't be an interesting plot line as a story and as a viewer if it wasn't a woman having this life. Because it wouldn't surprise us if it was a man. Anyway, so she leaves from explaining to her family about this other whole ass life she had to meet with her black kids. She's never told anybody this. So she meets them. She agrees to meet them at some diner at a bus station, right? I guess away from her home because Lord knows she can't have them black kids in her house. So they ask her, they're like, look, they're sitting at the diner at this table. This white girl keeps asking them if they want things. Her son finally goes off on her and tells her to fuck off. Like, and she looked like she wanted to just go and cry after she was trying to be nice to them. But anyway, they ask her if she hates being black. She goes, no, I'm a proud black woman. I was like, baby. I don't know what in the James Brown hell you heard, but see, that would be an American reaction because it ain't really like a good move, even if you act in self-hatred ways, to not say you're not proud. That's why I feel like this was an American who produced this movie. But okay, I don't feel like that's a thing in Britain you have to say. So anyway, so they go, well, what about your accent? What happened to it? And I was like, all of y'all have a British accent. And maybe, I don't know, maybe that's how we sound to other people across the world. Like we just sound like we're from the States. But no, there is an African American dialect in this country. See, we would have noticed it more, not simply because we're American, but because there is something distinctly different about the way we talk and our kind of slang. And I could even tell by watching the movie, I was like, this is why I get so infuriated when like West Africans in particular, black people from the Caribbean, white people, say things like, oh, African Americans don't have a culture. They don't know where they come from. Well, don't get me started on why we don't know everything about where we come from. Like literally as I watched them talk about being black, they were literally imitating African American culture, hip hop culture, Instagram culture, TikTok culture, black lingo, like all of the African American lingo. And I was like, damn, what would the world do without us if they didn't have things to steal? Anyway, so they asked her in this conversation at the diner. I'm back to the diner now. They asked her, she was like basically saying that she escaped their father. Their father was a dangerous man. And they were like, well, why didn't you take us with you? She said, they were like, you left us. She was like, I didn't leave you. I left you with your auntie. I was like, girl, you left them, but you just left them with your sister. And they said she gave us away. I was like, oh shit, this whole family is fucked up. Right? The daughter asked if she was going, and I'm thinking to myself, did the father fight for these kids at all? Like, what happened? That you could actually leave them in the care of the auntie. The father don't say nothing, and he was living with y'all. This everybody just fucked up. So anyway, the daughter asked if she was going to let them move into her house, the big house, now that they've been sort of reunited. And she goes, and she does the real white thing too. I have to give it to her, the faking. She goes, that's a good question. But she was like, first I want to help you get back on your feet. I'm like, this girl can't be no more than 15. You need to help her get back in school since you working at one. Anyway, so she hands them a check for 20,000 pounds. Okay, so she broke it in two separate checks. She goes to avoid arguments. I guess so one would have 10,000 pounds and the other one would have 10,000 pounds. And she said, you can go back to London and then you can just start your life there. They both just start crying. Like, so this is the first kind of, real vulnerability we see with Carl, her, her black son she don't want. She wants Sebas, the other black son. All right, so Carl just says, well, thank you, Mom. That's all, and it just ends there. Next, we get her back in her house, giving her explanation to her family about these misunderstandings that blew up at this gala in their backyard, and when she was acting hood and ghetto. So she then gives an explanation to her family, the family that she likes, So she's in like this white nightgown with her natural hair. She done taken off the wig and everything, looking like she rolled just out of bed, like she was looking rough. But I think that was the intention of the scene. So she tells him, look, I was traumatized. I was traumatized. I was in a bad relationship. I was traumatized after the second birth. She says, I never even wanted her. Dion, her black daughter. Now, does that happen to some women? Yes, it does. But you gladly had a son and a second daughter, so girl, Nev slash Cheryl, don't do it. I was like, damn, but that is an honest reflection, right? You have a baby and just like, I just didn't want it. She says she has no idea what would have happened if she would have stayed with him. She was like, I wouldn't have you all. She tells them that, look, they're gone for now. They've left back to London. She told her family they decided to leave on their own. And she said, the kids asked, well, will we ever see them again? She said, well, maybe, but first we need to heal as a family. The family she likes. Her husband Ian takes her side and says, yes, we need to heal and stay together. We'll have many more conversations. So Mary, her daughter she likes, and Ian, her husband, hug her. But Sebas is kind of hesitant, but they, eventually just seem to come together as a family. So the next part of the movie is themed family reunion. I said, oh shit. Something about it just said like, here comes the bullshit. So Carl and Dion show up to a house looking like robbers. Okay, that's how they looked. And Dion has this party hat on, like cocked to the side. I said, what the fuck is about to go down? They broke into a house, and I was like, oh, that's a very nice house, not realizing that the house belonged to Nev slash Cheryl. And they're moving all quiet and slick through the house. And Carl finds Nev in her bed. Dion is doing fuck shit like people would do without no home training. And I'm really trying to go nice on y'all because I know y'all didn't have no home training because obviously y'all had a lot of fucked up times as kids. But you were doing shit that people with no home training do. All right? Like when you walk in people's houses, cutting on their lights, running up their bill, running up their hot water, using their toasters, running up electricity, and sitting in their white robes. The white plush ones just sitting in their chair on their furniture. Like they were on the stairway to heaven. Anyway, so Carl sees his mother's hair, and after she gets up, because she thinks it's Sebas running all this water and running up her light bill and everything. And Carl sees his mother and said, Mom, I like your hair. Taking it back to the 90s. And I was like, is this supposed to be an implication about like what she looked like when they were born? But whatever. So Nev kind of like gives him a look, and the next thing you know, she runs. He grabs her like a chick on the street. Like it's not even his mother. And he says if she keeps fighting back, she's going to see what happens. Now her husband says to him, like, look, we didn't know. We had questions too. First of all, I'm looking at you like you a bitch. You let another man grab your wife like that? I don't give a fuck if it is her son. He's 20 years old in y'all's house. Y'all ain't grabbed no knife to throw at this motherfucker to get him out. Y'all haven't grabbed no real weapons. Y'all ain't do what y'all always do, which is call the British police or whatever the hell it was. And I'm like, who the fuck would react like this? But okay then. So, Nev slash Cheryl didn't tell us. Oh yeah. So Nev said, they start asking her. They said, you mean Cheryl, all the kids' mouse drops? Because he said, well, Nev didn't tell us. And they were like, Cheryl? And her kids look at her like, what? I said, oh. All right, so then they claim they're going to have Chinese food for Dion's birthday because she's missed so many birthdays. I mean, they were showing their entire fucking ass. And the Chinese food place was closed because Mary called, Mary's the daughter she likes. And then they start asking, well, do they have Uber Eats? Do they have all this stuff? I'm like, didn't Britain just get Uber like in 2019? Okay, but okay then. All right, at this point, I'm trying to figure out I'm still trying to figure out what is wrong with Ian. That he is letting this Negro, because white people will call the police on somebody black, even if they're in their own neighborhood, in their own car, using up their own gas, warming up their car in the middle of winter. Anyway, I'm like, why are you letting this young man come into the house and take y'all hostage? And ain't nobody got no weapons, no Amazon ring, no true security. He was just able to take like a regular toolkit and just unlock the door. I said, what the fuck? So then they keep letting the water run. Mind you, while he's taking them hostage, they just still running the water, running lights, running up electricity. It's starting to flood them nice wooded floors. I said, here we go. Anyway, so he doesn't even have um a game. Like a game plan. Like I'm just sitting up here like nobody is fighting these motherfuckers. Nobody has gone to the wine closet and taken a bottle and thrown it at this ninja's head. Like I know y'all mad, but y'all fitting to fuck up this woman's house. And that shit was stressing me out. They just kept running that water and running that water. All the lights was on, just everything. And this is like the middle of the night. All right. So she asked, um, well, Carl asked her black son, the one she doesn't want, asked who wrote the check, Nev or Ian? And Ian looks like, what? And he looks at her and goes, you tried to buy them off? And she admits it. So Carl says, her black son says, well, you know what? Fine. I want you to round it up. Not just 20,000 pounds. 20,000 pounds for 20 years. I was like, is that what round up means over there? But anyway, so then Dion and Carl claim they've come to buy back Cheryl. And I was like, buy her back? What kind of shit is this? So Ian and Mary's response to her trying to buy them off, giving the impression, once again, that this is the angry, neglectful black mother. And apparently she still exists across the big pond known as the Atlantic Ocean. And the well-meaning white man who tried to support his family and his wife despite her lies and was duped by the con artist black woman. Because he comes out looking like a sympathetic character. So it seems like they tried to take the racial criticisms of African Americans and apply it to black people in Great Britain. And considering their attitudes toward African Americans, it did not translate well in this family or in this film. Okay, that's just me. So then the mother plays along and starts advocating, like, okay, fine, we'll play a board game. We'll play a board game for her party, Dion's birthday, because she still got that cocked hat and she still wants her mother's love, even though her mother has clearly left her by the wayside. So, she starts advocating for teams. Well, that's what we like to do in this family. We're family now, right? Like she is just a faker, like crazy. And so they start playing Scrabble in teams. By this time, the house is like a quarter flooded, right? To the point where their lights start to flicker. And Carl is walking around threatening everybody, her black son that she don't want. Slushing across the damn living room. But as Dion is having fun, going along with the bullshit because she's used to faking, Carl, not only Dion is happy, but Nev / Cheryl is faking. Carl gets mad and all of a sudden he slams and thrashes the Scrabble board out of nowhere and takes Ian back to the weightlifting room where Ian seems like he can't handle the weight. And Ian goes along with in his house. I said, if there was ever time for a white man to pull a white man, but he didn't do that. So all of a sudden we hear the bell to the house. And I was like, okay, somebody finally called the police, right? So, because I'm looking at the time on a Netflix movie, like, well, something's got to come to an end. So then there's the Uber Eats guy. He shows up and asks if this is the early morning munchies. Da 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 da. She says, "Don't I know you?" And he was like, "No, I don't think I've delivered here before." So then she tells him to wait so she can get him a tip. So she goes upstairs looking for her purse. She had asked Sebastian where it was. He was like, probably in your room. So she goes upstairs. Meanwhile, Carl is forcing Ian to hold weights that he know he can't hold. And all of a sudden we hear the weight fall on his neck. And we see a splattering of blood. We don't know whether he's dead or alive. We probably would guess that he was dead. She gets her purse and she goes to tip the man. And I'm like, uh-oh. A good thing Carl's in the weight room. But they're still waiting for her. Everybody's nervous because they done had these motherfuckers come and take over their house and shit. And then she looks at the kids, the kids she likes and the one she neglected. Dion, Mary, and Sebastian, and looks at them and says, I'm sorry. It really shouldn't have been like this. So she says, I'm gonna go give him a tip. Then the next thing we hear is her getting on a motorcycle with the Uber Eats guy. Now, mind you, she has her purse. Mind you, she was making good money as that head deputy at that private school. Motorcycle with the Uber Eats guy to basically escape the situation. I'm thinking the Uber Eats guy just left. She still had her wallet. She all we hear is the motorcycle and the kids just standing there like this. That was the end of the movie. And I still don't know how I feel about it. That shit was a mess. So if y'all watch it, and it's in the top 10 on Netflix, so I imagine a lot of people be watching it. Y'all let me know what y'all think and put it down in the comments because that was a piece of work. I'll see y'all later. Bye.